23rd of November 1942, Stalingrad, Sector 7, Factory District. If you ever love someone like a brother, you'll understand what it means to watch them die for absolutely nothing. I can still smell it. That particular combination of brick dust, cordite, frozen blood, and diesel smoke that defined every breath we took in those ruins. The Red October factory stood behind us like the skeleton of some industrial giant, its chimneys broken teeth against a gray sky that hadn't seen the sun in weeks. We called our position the Coffin, a collapsed apartment building that formed a natural bunker between the factory and the Volga. 5 of us held that position. By the end, only I walked away. My name is Viktor Sokolov, Private, 13th Guards Rifle Division. I turned 19 in that frozen hell, though I felt 50 by the time I saw my next birthday. But this story isn't about me. It's about Dmitry Volkov, my best friend since childhood, the boy who taught me to fish in the Don River, who shared his last piece of bread with me when we were starving in training camp, who promised we'd survive this war together and open a mechanics shop in Moscow when it was all over. I buried him with my own hands in the frozen ground of Stalingrad, and on that day, something fundamental broke inside me. The propaganda, the glory, the speeches about the motherland, all of it turned to ash. What remained was simply this: survive. Just survive. Let me take you back to the beginning. Not the beginning of the war. That's too far. Let me take you back to 3 days before I lost him. Before everything changed. The Coffin. We'd been holding our position for 2 weeks. 2 weeks might not sound like much, but in Stalingrad, 2 weeks was an eternity. Buildings changed hands 3-4 times in a single day. You'd clear a floor, think you'd won, then hear German voices coming up the stairs an hour later. The front line wasn't a line at all. It was a 3-dimensional maze of rubble and death where you never knew if the enemy was above you, below you, or in the next room. Our squad consisted of 5 men. There was Sergeant Ivanov, a factory worker from Leningrad who'd lost his entire family in the siege. He never smiled, never complained, just gave orders in a flat monotone that somehow made you want to obey them. Then there was Alexei, a sniper from Siberia with hands so steady he could pick off a German at 300 meters through a gap the size of a kopeck coin. Pyotr was our youngest, 17, though he'd lied about his age to enlist. The kid could run like a rabbit, which made him our best scout and messenger. And then there was Dmitry. Dmitry and I had enlisted together in September 1941. We'd survived the retreat from Ukraine. We'd survived the brutal winter outside Moscow. We'd survived Voronezh, Kursk, and the long, bloody march to Stalingrad. 14 months of war, and we were still together. That had to mean something, right? Like we were charmed. Like God or fate or whatever you want to call it had decided we'd make it home. I was so stupid. Our section of the Coffin was actually the remains of someone's apartment. You could still see wallpaper in places. Faded flowers, cheerful yellows and blues that seemed obscene in that context. There was even a photograph on one wall, somehow still hanging despite everything. A family of 4, smiling at the camera. Father, mother, 2 daughters. I wondered about them every day. Had they evacuated? Were they dead? Were those little girls lying in some mass grave along with thousands of others? Dmitry caught me staring at that photo once. "Don't," he said quietly. "Don't think about them. Think about us. Think about staying alive." Good advice. I should have listened better. The Germans held the building across the street, maybe 60 meters away, close enough that we could hear them talking sometimes, close enough that both sides had learned to move very, very quietly. In that pocket of Stalingrad, the war had become intimate, personal. You knew the enemy by sound and shadow. Sometimes you even recognized individual voices. There was one German, we called him the Singer, who hummed the same melody every night around sunset. Alexei wanted to shoot him, but Sergeant Ivanov forbade it. "Let him sing," Ivanov said. "When he stops, We'll know they're planning something. On November 20th, the singer stopped singing. The orders. The attack came the next morning. Not against our position. The Germans had learned that frontal assaults on the coffin were suicide. Instead, they hit the factory workers' barracks 200 meters north. We heard the explosions, the machine gun fire, the screams, then silence. Too quick. The Germans had taken it. This was bad. If they consolidated that position, they'd have a clear line of fire into our left flank. We'd be exposed, unable to move during daylight. Sergeant Ivanov knew it. He spent an hour on the field telephone with headquarters, arguing, pleading. I watched his face grow harder with each minute. Finally, he hung up and looked at us. "We're going to take it back." "When?" Alexei asked. "Tonight. We move at 2200 hours. My stomach dropped. Night operations in Stalingrad were insanity. You couldn't see 10 meters in front of you. Shadows moved, and you didn't know if they were your own men or Germans. Friendly fire killed as many as enemy fire in those conditions. Everyone knew it. "Just the 5 of us, Comrade Sergeant?" Pyotr asked, his voice cracking slightly. "Headquarters is sending reinforcements. A platoon from the 95th. They'll hit from the east. We go in from the west. Clear the ground floor and basement. Simple." Nothing was ever simple. Dmitri and I spent the afternoon preparing. We checked our rifles, his Mosin Nagant and my own, both of which we'd maintained with an almost religious devotion. We counted our ammunition. 47 rounds between us, plus 3 grenades each. We filled our canteens with water from the Volga, boiled over a fire made from chair legs and prayer books. "You remember the Melnikov farm?" Dmitri asked suddenly as we worked. I smiled. "The one with the mean dog? Your mother was convinced we were going to get rabies." He laughed, a sound that seemed impossible in that place. "We were what, 10? 11? 10. You dared me to steal apples from their orchard, and that dog chased us halfway back to town. We jumped in the river to get away. God, that water was cold." He paused, looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "I want to go back there, Vitya. When this is over, I want to swim in that river again." "We will," I said, and I meant it. I believed it. If you've never been in a war, you can't understand how desperately you need to believe in the future. You need to believe there's a tomorrow where you're not freezing in rubble, where bullets aren't cracking past your head, where your friends aren't dying in your arms. You need that belief like you need air. Without it, you'd just stop. You'd put your rifle in your mouth and pull the trigger. So yes, I believed we'd swim in that river again. I had to. At 21:45 hours, Sergeant Ivanov gathered us together. The temperature had dropped below freezing. Our breath formed clouds in the darkness. Somewhere in the distance, artillery rumbled like thunder. "Listen carefully," Ivanov said. "The 95th moves in 15 minutes. When you hear their attack begin, we go. Dmitri and Alexei, you're with me. We take the main entrance. Viktor and Pyotr, you flank right. Come through what's left of the kitchen. We meet in the central room. Clear every corner, every shadow. If it moves and doesn't give the password, you shoot it. Password is Volga. Response is Motherland." "Questions?" "What about prisoners?" Alexei asked. Ivanov's face was granite. "No prisoners tonight. We don't have time and we don't have the men to guard them. This is about taking the building back, nothing else." I saw Pyotr swallow hard. The kid had never killed anyone up close. Hell, I wasn't sure he'd killed anyone at all. Sniping was different, distant, almost abstract. But clearing rooms? That was personal. That was looking into someone's eyes as you pulled the trigger. "Move out," Ivanov ordered. We left the coffin in single file, moving through the rubble like ghosts. The moon was hidden behind clouds, which was good and bad. Good because the Germans couldn't see us. Bad because we couldn't see much either. Every shadow could hide a sentry. Every sound could be a trap. Pyotr moved ahead of me, surprisingly quiet for someone so young. I'd taught him some of what Dmitri and I had learned. How to step on rubble without making noise. How to breathe through your nose to stay silent. How to use ruins for cover. He was a good student. We reached the wrecked apartment building, our objective, just as the first explosions lit up the eastern side. The 95th had begun their assault. Now it was our turn. The attack. The kitchen entrance was a gaping wound in the building's side. Bricks and mortar had collapsed inward, creating a rough opening barely wide enough for a man. Pyotr went first, his rifle leading the way. I followed, my heart hammering so hard I thought the Germans would hear it. Inside was darker than the outside, if such a thing was possible. The smell hit me immediately. Death, old and new. Something had died in here, something large, and it had been rotting for days. Pyotr gagged. I put a hand on his shoulder, steadying him. We moved deeper into the ruins. Our eyes adjusted slowly to the darkness. Shapes resolved into broken furniture, collapsed walls, doorways leading to nowhere. The sound of fighting from the eastern side was louder now. Gunfire, grenades, men screaming. Our diversion was working. The hallway branched. Left led to the central room where we were supposed to meet Ivanov. Right led to a stairwell, probably down to the basement. That's when we heard it. German voices. Below us. In the basement. Pyotr looked at me, his eyes wide with fear. I held up 2 fingers, then pointed down. He shook his head frantically. I understood. He wanted to go around, to avoid the Germans and just reach the rendezvous point. But I knew better. If we left Germans alive in the basement, they'd come up behind Ivanov's group. They'd be trapped. I pointed down again, more firmly this time. After a moment, Pyotr nodded. The stairs descended into absolute blackness. Each step creaked under our weight, sounds that seemed impossibly loud. I counted them as we went down. 7, 8, 9. At the bottom, a faint orange glow, candlelight or a lamp, leaked from beneath a door. The German voices were clearer now. I could make out words. Nicht sicher. Morgen vielleicht. Not sure. Maybe tomorrow. Talking about the war, probably. About going home. About the same things Dmitri and I talked about. Pyotr readied his rifle. I pulled the pin on a grenade. This is the part where I'm supposed to tell you I felt something. Remorse. Hesitation. The weight of what I was about to do. But the truth is, I felt nothing. They were the enemy. They wanted to kill me and my friends. It was that simple. I kicked the door open and threw the grenade. 2 seconds of absolute chaos. Shouts of alarm. A scramble for weapons. The grenade detonated with a flash that burned itself into my vision. The concussion knocked plaster from the walls. Then Pyotr and I were inside, firing. 3 Germans, maybe 4. Hard to tell in the smoke and darkness. I shot one who was trying to bring his rifle up. He fell backward, blood spraying. Pyotr fired twice, missed, fired again. Another German went down. The 3rd one got a shot off. I heard the bullet whip past my head, so close it stirred my hair. Then Pyotr was firing again, and the German collapsed. Silence. Ringing ears. The smell of cordite mixing with blood. Vitya? Pyotr's voice was shaking. Vitya, I think I killed him. I think... You did good. I cut him off. Come on. We need to keep moving. We climbed back up the stairs, leaving the dead Germans behind. I didn't look at their faces. Didn't want to see how young they might have been. Didn't want to see the wedding ring on someone's finger or the photograph of a sweetheart in someone's pocket. They were the enemy. That's all they could be. The central room of the building was chaos when we arrived. Alexei was firing out a window. Sergeant Ivanov was reloading, his face grim. And Dmitri was laughing. Not hysterical laughter. Not the laughter of someone who'd lost their mind. Just genuine amusement. He saw me and grinned. Blood splattered across his face that wasn't his own. You should have seen it, Vitya. 3 of them tried to rush us, and Alexei... He gestured at our sniper. Alexei dropped all 3 before they made it through the door. Position secure? I asked Ivanov. For now. The 95th is pushing hard from the east. Germans are falling back. He checked his watch. We hold this building for 2 hours. Then reinforcements arrive. Then we can... The explosion came from above us. Ceiling tiles and dust rained down. Everyone hit the ground instinctively. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard it. German voices. Multiple. On the floor above us. Shit, Ivanov breathed. They had a reserve squad upstairs. Pyotr, check the stairwell. But Pyotr was already moving, young and fast. He disappeared into the shadows, heading for the stairs. That's when everything went wrong. The moment. The gunfire from upstairs was deafening. Pyotr's rifle, answered by a burst of German MP-40 fire. Then Pyotr's scream. Contact! Multiple hostiles! His voice cut off. Pyotr! Ivanov shouted, but the kid didn't answer. Dmitri looked at me. I looked at him. We both knew. I'll go, he said. We'll both go, I replied. Ivanov grabbed my shoulder. No, I need you here to hold this. But Dmitri was already running, and I was right behind him, because that's what you did. You didn't leave your friends. You didn't let them go alone. The stairwell was a nightmare. Narrow, dark, filled with smoke from the earlier explosion. We took the steps 2 at a time, our rifles ready. Above us, more gunfire. The Germans were pushing down. Pyotr! Dmitri called. Where are you? A weak voice. Here! I'm here! We found him on the landing between floors. He'd been hit in the leg and the shoulder. Blood pooled beneath him, black in the dim light. His rifle lay a meter away, knocked from his hands. Dmitri dropped to his knees beside the kid. I've got you. You're going to be fine. Above us, footsteps. The Germans were coming. Get him out of here, I said to Dmitri. I'll hold them. Vitya, don't be stupid. We both. One of us needs to get him to Ivanov. You're stronger. Go. For just a second, Dmitri hesitated. And in that second, I saw everything in his eyes. The fear. The knowledge that separating was probably a death sentence for at least one of us. The desperate hope that maybe, somehow, we'd both make it through. The river, he said. We swim in that river. You promised. I'll see you in 5 minutes, I lied. He grabbed Pyotr under the arms and started dragging him down the stairs. I turned to face the darkness above me, my rifle ready. The first German appeared around the corner. I shot him. He fell backward, taking 2 others down with him. Someone threw a grenade. I dove down the stairs, hitting the landing hard. The explosion shook the building. Chunks of stairwell rained down. When I looked up, the stairs were partially collapsed. Good. That would slow them. I needed to get back to the main room. Needed to regroup with Ivanov and Alexei. I turned and Dmitri was still there. He'd propped Pyotr against the wall and was coming back up the stairs. What are you doing? I shouted. I told you to go. Since when do I follow your orders? He grinned, that stupid, beautiful grin that I'd seen 1,000 times. Besides, you need someone to watch your back. Above us, the Germans were working around the collapsed stairs. We had maybe 30 seconds. Come on, Dmitri said, grabbing my arm. Together. Like always. We ran. Down the stairs. Through the hallway. The sound of Germans behind us shouting, firing. Bullets sparked off walls. Dmitri pulled a grenade, threw it backward without looking. The explosion bought us seconds. The central room was ahead. I could see Ivanov and Alexei at the windows firing at Germans outside. Almost there. Almost. The bullet hit Dmitri. I didn't see where it came from. One of the Germans behind us, probably. Doesn't matter. What matters is that I heard the impact. A wet, heavy sound that I'll hear for the rest of my life. And Dmitri stumbled. Vitya! He fell against me. I caught him. Felt the warmth of his blood on my hands. No, 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 no. Come on, I said, my voice breaking. We're almost there. Just a few more meters. His legs wouldn't work properly. I half carried, half dragged him. Behind us, Germans were coming around the collapsed stairwell. In front of us, the central room was so close. Ivanov! I screamed. Help! I need... Dmitri's weight suddenly doubled. He wasn't helping anymore. Wasn't even trying to move his legs. I looked at his face. His eyes were still open, still looking at me. But there was something wrong with his breathing. Short, wet gasps. Dmitri? Dmitri, stay with me. The river, he whispered. Blood bubbled at his lips. Vitya, the river? Yes, the river. We'll go to the river. Just hold on. I dragged him the last few meters. Ivanov appeared, firing past us at the Germans. Alexei grabbed Dmitri's other arm. Together, we pulled him into the room. How bad? Ivanov demanded. I was afraid to look, afraid to see, but I looked anyway. The bullet had entered his back, below the left shoulder blade. When I rolled him over, I saw the exit wound in his chest. Large, ragged. Blood was everywhere. Alexei took one look and turned away. No, I said. No. We can patch this. We can... Vitya. Dmitri's hand found mine. His grip was weak. Vitya, listen. Don't you dare. Don't you dare say goodbye. He smiled. Blood stained his teeth. Remember the farm, the dog, the river. Dmitri, please. It was a good life. With you, a good... His hand went slack in mine. I don't remember what happened next. Not clearly. Ivanov told me later that I screamed, that I tried to do chest compressions, tried to breathe life back into him even though half his chest was missing, that it took both him and Alexei to pull me away. All I remember is the silence. The terrible, absolute silence when Dmitri stopped breathing. The fighting continued around us. The Germans tried twice more to take the building. We held them off. Reinforcements arrived at dawn. We were relieved, decorated, told we'd done a great service for the motherland. I didn't care. The burial. We buried him 2 days later. The ground was frozen solid, so we had to use grenades to break it up first. 3 other men from our division helped me dig. It took hours. Sergeant Ivanov said some words. I don't remember them. Alexei stood beside me, one hand on my shoulder. Pyotr was in the hospital, would lose his leg but survive. I lowered Dmitri into the ground myself, wrapped in a blanket because we didn't have coffins. His face was peaceful at least. They'd cleaned the blood away. I stood there, looking down at my best friend in a hole in the frozen earth of Stalingrad, and something fundamental broke inside me. All the propaganda I'd believed, all the speeches about glory and the motherland and dying heroically for the cause, all the stories of brave soldiers making noble sacrifices, all of it was a lie. There was no glory in this. There were no heroes. There was only mud and blood and frozen ground. There were only young men dying for reasons they barely understood, in places they'd never wanted to be, far from everyone they loved. Dmitri didn't die heroically. He died from a bullet in the back, fired by some German soldier who probably didn't even see his face. He died in the dark, in pain, choking on his own blood. And for what? So we could hold a ruined building for 2 hours? I picked up a handful of frozen dirt and dropped it onto his blanket-wrapped body. The sound it made, that hollow thud, echoes in my nightmares still. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry. But sorry didn't bring him back. Sorry didn't change anything. I stayed at the grave long after the others left. Stayed until the sun set and the temperature dropped and I couldn't feel my hands anymore. Stayed because leaving felt like abandonment, like I was giving up on him. Finally, Alexei came back. Didn't say anything, just stood beside me in the darkness. He saved my life, you know, I finally said. In training. I got pneumonia, nearly died. He gave me his blanket, his rations, sat with me every night. I know. We were going to open a mechanic shop in Moscow after the war. I know. He was supposed to be my best man at my wedding. Alexei put his hand on my shoulder again. Come on, Vitya, it's cold, and we have guard duty in 2 hours. I let him lead me away. Left Dmitri in the ground, in Stalingrad, in the frozen hell that had taken him from me. After the war continued, I continued. I fought through the rest of Stalingrad, through Kursk and Kharkov, through the long push west into Poland and Germany. I survived it all, but I was different after Dmitri died. Harder, colder. I stopped learning names, stopped making friends, Stopped believing in anything except getting through the next hour, the next day, the next battle. Some men say they fought for their country, for Stalin, for communism, for freedom. After Dmitri died, I fought for nothing. I fought because stopping meant dying, and some stubborn part of me refused to give the war that satisfaction. I killed a lot of Germans. I stopped counting after the first 100. Stopped caring if they had families or sweethearts or dreams. They were the enemy, and the enemy needed to die so that I could live. It was that simple. Sergeant Ivanov noticed the change. Tried to talk to me about it once. I told him to fuck off. He never tried again. Alexei understood, I think. He'd lost people too. Everyone had. We became a unit of ghosts, haunting the battlefields of Europe, leaving corpses in our wake. I made it to Berlin, saw the Reichstag fall, stood in the ruins of Hitler's bunker and felt nothing. No triumph, no joy, just exhaustion and a desperate need for it to be over. When the war ended in May 1945, I cried. From relief that I'd finally be allowed to stop. The return. They sent me home in June. Gave me medals that I threw in a drawer and never looked at again. Gave me a parade that made me want to vomit. Everyone wanted to hear war stories, wanted me to tell them about glory and heroism and the great victory. I told them nothing. I went back to my village. My mother was dead. Died in 42 from starvation during the siege of Leningrad. My father had remarried to a woman I didn't know. My house felt like a stranger's. In August, I went to Dmitri's family. His mother opened the door, saw me, and started crying. She knew. Of course she knew. The telegram had arrived months ago. "Tell me how he died," she begged. "Was it quick? Did he suffer?" I lied. Told her it was instant. Told her he didn't feel anything. Told her he died a hero. She needed to hear it. And I needed to give her something, some small comfort for the son she'd lost. His father asked about the mechanic's shop, asked if I was still going to open it, in Dmitri's memory. "No," I said. "I'm sorry. I can't." I never explained why. How could I? How could I tell them that I couldn't look at an engine without seeing Dmitri's face? That I couldn't think about Moscow without remembering our plans, our dreams, all the futures that died with him in Stalingrad? I left their house and walked to the Don River, to the spot where we used to swim as boys, where that damn dog chased us, where we were young and stupid and alive. I stood on the bank for hours until the sun set and the stars came out. I never went in the water. Couldn't. It would have felt like a betrayal. The years after. It's been over 80 years now. I'm 99 years old, writing this in a Moscow apartment that I bought with my pension. I never married, never had children, never opened that mechanic shop. I worked in a factory for 40 years, came home to an empty apartment every night, existed, but didn't really live. People ask me sometimes about the war, young people mostly, who've only read about it in books. They want to know about the battles, the tactics, the equipment. They want to know if I'm proud of what we accomplished. I tell them I'm proud we stopped Hitler. Proud we saved Europe from fascism. Proud we survived. I don't tell them the rest. I don't tell them about the nightmares that still wake me up screaming. About how I can't stand the sound of fireworks because they sound too much like artillery. About how I jump every time a door slams because it sounds like a gunshot. I don't tell them about Dmitri. Actually, that's not true. I'm telling you now. You, reading this or listening to this or however you're experiencing these words. I'm finally telling someone. His name was Dmitri Volkov. He was my best friend. He died at 19 years old in a ruined apartment building in Stalingrad, killed by a German bullet while saving my life. He never got to swim in our river again, never got to open that mechanic shop, never got to be best man at my wedding because I never got married without him there. He was funny and brave and kind. He shared his last piece of bread with me. He sat with me when I was sick. He made me laugh in the middle of hell. He wasn't a hero. He was just a boy who wanted to go home. On the day I buried him, I realized something that has defined the rest of my long, lonely life. War doesn't have heroes. It has survivors. And sometimes being a survivor is the worst fate of all. I'm 99 years old. I've lived 80 years past Stalingrad. 80 years that Dmitri never got. Some days I'm grateful for that time. Most days, I wonder why I got it and he didn't. There's no moral to this story. No lesson to be learned. No wisdom to be gained from suffering. There's just a grave in Stalingrad, probably unmarked now, probably paved over or built on, where my best friend lies in frozen ground. If you've never lost someone like that, be grateful. If you have, then you understand why I've spent 80 years unable to forgive myself for surviving. The singer, that German who used to hum every night, stopped singing on November 20th. I never heard him again. Maybe he died in the fighting. Maybe he went home to Germany. I hope he did. I hope he got the life that Dmitri didn't. I hope someone, somewhere, got to swim in their river again.